sad story I happened to speak with. Right when I got back from Iraq, being sworn into office, and then immediately we had a travesty, a tremendous catastrophe, and every time I think about it, I get choked up. What happened was we had an officer who was a regular patrol, and he spotted an individual, and he sort of engaged him in conversation. That individual took 2 steps back, pulled out a gun, it happened so fast, and shot him point blank in the head. Probably was dead before he even knew it hit him. Very sad story. Young officer, nice officer, and the most amazing thing, now, I'm a young guy, Rabbi Shankalevsky could probably tell you, in his memory of 40 years being in Lakewood, Beis Medrash Gavoya probably never closed the Gemara to come out to be, and they lined the avenues, all the B'nai Yeshiva lined the avenues in respect for the officer. And what I've heard, and I did not hear this firsthand, but Rabbi Leib Steinman, in his explanation, and this has been told to me over, so again, I don't know, I wasn't there when it was said, but he had said, we all know the mission of us, Ethics of Fathers, that says, which means if we do not have fear of government and from law enforcement, each person must follow his friend up alive. That means that law enforcement stands for the law. They stand for Chaim. They stand for what makes society run. Therefore, it's imperative for everyone to be at this funeral. And the roads were lined with B'nai Yeshiva that came out for this funeral. And as a matter of fact, it was actually kind of ironic. In one of the news agencies that was reporting the story, they said, and the Orthodox community donned black because of the sad story. And the guy just got the mice. At the end of the day, this is how we have to sometimes think. When we deal with the secular community, it's important to deal with it this way.
By far, the most active police chaplains are sitting here right in this room. Rabbi Shankalevsky, he holds the honorary title of inspector. We have Moshe David Ehrman. He's our newest police chaplain. He's been a police chaplain for a couple of years. Holds the honorary title of captain. And Avram Moshe Miller, another honorary captain. This is our cadre. These are my go-to people whenever I have a situation that requires intervention on their part, or I reach out to them as a liaison to the Orthodox community. Coping with stress. Mayor Miller mentioned the murder of Officer Chris Matlos. He was shot 3 times at close range, never even got his gun out of the holster. It was just a complete surprise. He rolled up to question an individual, Jamal Cochran, who was wanted for murder. He didn't recognize this individual. This individual was carrying a gun, and rather than go to jail, he pulled a gun out of his waistband and at close range fired 1 round, continued to walk toward the officer, and fired 2 more rounds. He never had a chance. So in the history of not only Lakewood, but Ocean County, this is the first officer that has died feloniously in the history of our county. And it was a very difficult time, as you can imagine, not only for the officer's family, but for all the officers, or the police mishpucha, as we say. Our police chaplains were there at the time the event happened up at Jersey Shore. They came to some of the counseling sessions that we had for the officers, and I really don't know how we would have made it through without.
What chesed can be done as a chaplain, and it's a tremendous work, and it's a tremendous reward for somebody to be able to get the position, and not only to hold the position for photo ops, but to hold the position to really do chesed for people. Because anything, people when they are in pain, any little things that normal people who walk in the street will never understand, for them it means nothing. But for the person that either is sick in a hospital or is incarcerated in the Department of Correction in any place in the world, to do a little thing to make his life easier means the world.
On 9/11, I was a captain with the Port Authority Police Department, and I had an office on the 84th floor of World Trade Center Tower #1. And the week before, I was planning a vacation with my brother-in-law, who just recently got a great job with Cantor Fitzgerald on the 105th floor of the World Trade Center. And I was trying to get all my work done. And my boss, who Yankee knows and Michael remembers, Chief James Ramito, called me in his office and he said, I want you to go to a conference this coming week, Monday and Tuesday, on what on September 10th was the biggest issue in law enforcement. Racial profiling, Chief, you remember. I said to him, Chief, I have work I need to get done. I'm going away for a week and I want to make sure that I've got everything squared away. And he said to me, I'll never forget the words, he said, Chris, you work too hard, take a couple days off. Go with Bobby and Pat, go to Atlantic City and have a good time. I went to Atlantic City and I lived and he died. Never ever forget the power of just listening. You know, people who worked for me wanted to be at ground zero and shovel and put debris in buckets and feel like they were doing something. And it was difficult to tell them I needed them to do something more difficult. I needed them to talk to families. I needed them to answer questions. And when they said, Cap, but we don't have the answers, what do we say? You tell them that. You tell them we don't have the answer. And you tell them what you know, you tell them what is factual. But I sat in 37 homes, in 37 kitchens, in 37 living rooms. And let me say this, I didn't go alone. Each time I went, I had the benefit of going with you. And that mattered very greatly. Never underestimate how critical your job is to a police department. 37 families, and not one family was the same. Not one family grieved the same. Not one family had the same questions that were asked the same
So I
way.
stop my car on College Avenue, New Brunswick, and I see an ambulance. I run out of the car, yell, ambulance, take me! He takes off. Takes off. I get back into my car and I drive to the emergency room. I make it to the emergency room, forget about the doctor. I walk into, I'm sweating. I can't stand it. The girl looks at me, she says, sit down. She says, what's your name? And before I know anything, she pushes a button. And I see all of a sudden lights flashing. And she diagnosed me as having a massive heart attack. She pushed the, whichever it was, the code went out. I'm on a stretcher, they're rushing me in to the heart unit. I'm in pain, I'm telling you the pain is, whoever had this privilege knows what I'm talking about. For those that haven't had it, they say this is woman's revenge on man. The women have to give birth to babies. And this is the revenge that they have. I'm holding on to the bed with sheer, just for the pain. And I'm levitating above the bed, holding on to it. And finally they say it's not the heart. They do the EKG. They say, okay, MRI, put him into the MRI. I'm in the MRI, I'm coming out, they haven't yet diagnosed it. I'm lying in the emergency room, I'm holding on to the bed with pain. My daughter walks into my room, and I hear from the next cubicle, an elderly man lying there. He says, that's Rabbi Kalbach? Oh, I've been meaning to call him. Let me ask Rabbi Kalbach. And he starts asking me a question. I'm holding onto the bed like this, and I realize I'm a chaplain. I have to answer his question. And I felt like telling him, sir, let me enjoy my pain alone. But I'll never forget this, and that's when I realized the role of a chaplain.